Pourquoi, les gens vous trahissent, Toujours, Arthur Schopenhauer. YouTube script Dark Wisdom and Philosophy channel. The person who hurt you the most was not your enemy. It was someone who called you a friend. Think about that for a moment. Not the stranger who wronged you. Not the rival who competed against you. The one who looked you in the eyes, knew your secrets, shared your table, and then drove the knife in so deep you couldn't breathe. And the worst part, you never saw it coming because you trusted them, because you loved them, because you were human enough to believe that people are, at their core, good. Schopenhauer would say you were wrong. And not just wrong, he would say you were naive in the most dangerous way possible. Here is the brutal truth that no one wants to tell you. Betrayal is not the exception. It is the rule. It is not a flaw in the human experience. It is the human experience. And until you understand why people betray, you will keep handing the blade to the next person who smiles at you. Most people think betrayal happens because of some extraordinary circumstance, a moment of weakness, a terrible temptation, a mistake made in the dark. They tell themselves a story. He was going through something. She was scared. He didn't mean it that way. She didn't realize what she was doing. And in that story, the betrayal becomes an accident, a deviation from who the person really is. Schopenhauer rejected this story completely. He argued that what a person does under pressure is not a deviation from their character. It is their character. The pressure simply removed the mask. The crisis did not create the betrayer. The betrayer was always there, waiting, smiling, being kind, biding time. What you witnessed was not a fall. It was a reveal. And this changes everything. Because if betrayal is a reveal, then the question is no longer, why did they do this? The real question becomes, what were the signs I chose not to see? Here is something dark that lives inside every human being. Schopenhauer called it the will, this blind, insatiable force that drives all living things to survive, to compete, to take, to win. Not because people are evil, but because the will does not care about your feelings. It does not care about loyalty. It does not understand gratitude. The will only knows one language. What do I get? Most people spend their entire lives dressing this will in polite clothing. They call it ambition. They call it self-preservation. They call it doing what they had to do. But strip away the language and the justifications, and what you are left with is this. When your presence stopped being useful to them, they moved on. When your loyalty became a limitation, they discarded it. When your success threatened theirs, they undermined you. Not because they are monsters, but because that is what human nature does when it is left unchecked. Now here's the layer that most people miss. The deeper, uglier truth about betrayal. The people most likely to betray you are not your enemies. They are the people closest to you. Because your enemies were never pretending. They never owed you anything. They never looked you in the eyes and swore they had your back. But the friend who betrayed you, that person made a promise. And every day they stayed silent about their resentment, their jealousy, their quiet contempt. They were already betraying you. Slowly. Invisibly. Long before the moment you discovered it. Schopenhauer understood this with terrifying clarity. He wrote that between human beings, even between those who call each other friends, there lives a constant competition, a quiet war. And what makes it so dangerous is that most people wage this war while smiling. They celebrate your successes with a warmth that hides envy. They give you advice that subtly steers you toward failure. They support you in ways that keep you just dependent enough on them to never fully rise. This is not cynicism. This is the observation of a man who studied human behavior without the comfort of illusion. But why? Why do the people who say they love you become the ones who wound you deepest? Because love without self-awareness becomes possession. Because proximity breeds comparison. Because watching someone you care about succeed forces a painful question that most people can never answer honestly. If they can do it, why can't I? And rather than face that question, rather than do the painful work of self-examination, most people unconsciously choose a different answer. They decide that you didn't deserve it. They decide that you had advantages they didn't have. They decide that you changed, that you got arrogant, that you forgot where you came from. And in that story, they become the victim. And you become someone who deserves to be taken down. Betrayal, in this light, is not really about you at all. It is about them. It is the final act of someone who could not tolerate their own smallness in the presence of your growth. So what do you do with this knowledge? Do you close yourself off? Do you stop trusting? Do you become cold, distant, a fortress with no gates? No, that is not wisdom. That is fear wearing the mask of strength. What Schopenhauer was pointing toward was something more demanding than isolation. He was pointing toward clarity. The kind of clarity that looks at people not as who you wish they were, but as who they actually are. The kind of clarity that watches behavior rather than listening to words. That notices when generosity always comes with conditions. That sees when encouragement contains just enough doubt to plant a seed of insecurity. That recognizes the friend who is only present during your struggles and mysteriously absent during your victories. This is not paranoia, this is intelligence. And there is a massive difference. The most dangerous thing you can do is give someone your complete trust before they have earned it through time and consistency. Not through words, not through grand gestures, not through declarations of loyalty made in comfortable moments. Through time. Through what they chose to do when choosing you was costly. Through what they said about you when you were not in the room. Because anyone can be loyal when loyalty is easy. The test of a person's character is what they do when betraying you would benefit them. And most people, if the benefit is large enough and the risk of being caught is small enough, will betray you. Schopenhauer was not cruel for believing this. He was honest in a way that most of us are too afraid to be. There is a kind of grief that comes with this realization. A mourning for the version of the world where people are fundamentally trustworthy. Where relationships are safe. Where the people who say they love you mean it in a way that will never waver. That world does not exist. And the sooner you grieve it, the sooner you can live powerfully in the world that does. The world that does exist contains people capable of extraordinary loyalty and people capable of stunning betrayal, and sometimes terrifyingly. Those are the same person at different points in time. The world that exists requires you to pay attention, to protect your vision, your plans, and your peace not with cynicism, but with discernment. To be warm but not reckless, open but not blind. The final truth that Schopenhauer leaves you with is this. The person who betrayed you is always telling you who they were. In small moments, in passing comments, in how they treated people who could do nothing for them, in how they reacted when someone else succeeded, in how quickly their support evaporated when your need became inconvenient. You saw it, but you chose the story of who you wanted them to be over the evidence of who they actually were. This is not your shame. This is your education. The goal is not to become someone who never trusts. The goal is to become someone who trusts with open eyes. Someone who knows that every person carries within them both the capacity for deep loyalty and the capacity for cold betrayal. And that which one emerges depends entirely on circumstances you cannot always control. So protect yourself, not by building walls, but by seeing clearly. Watch people's patterns, not their promises. Give access to your inner world slowly, and only to those who have proven through repeated action that they are worthy of it. Never make yourself indispensable to someone who sees you as a stepping stone. Never pour your deepest self into someone who only shows up when they need something from you. And when the betrayal comes, because Schopenhauer reminds us, it will come, do not collapse into bitterness. Do not let their smallness become your prison. Stand in the silence of what just happened and understand. This person showed you exactly who they are. And that knowledge, painful as it is one of the most powerful gifts another human being can give you. The ones who betray you teach you more about human nature than any philosophy book ever could. And in the end, that knowledge is not a wound. It is armor.